It is a matter of survival, as basic as breathing. The ability to move, to mobilize muscle and nerve, allows us to confront a world full of deadly challenges. But how did animals first evolve the splendid machinery for motion? What creatures gave rise to life's glorious dance?
Although movement and behavior is quite complex in the animal kingdom, we really can see the roots of movement in a very simple or primitive group.
They are creatures so simple that scientists once considered them plants. But now we know they revolutionized the animal world.
They invented wiring, they invented cabling. That's what nerves are. This was an amazing leap for the animal world.
Join us as we trace the path from sedentary life to glorious movement, a trail blazed by some unlikely heroes. Their legacy forever transformed the shape of life.
Motion is a very beautiful thing. Movement is so much a part of our lives, it's like breathing. We don't even think about it.
Biologist Jack Costello is awed by the graceful ballet of life.
One of the defining characters, or what we usually think of a trait of animals that sets them aside from, for example, plants or fungi, is the ability to move.
Racing through life in an awesome display of speed, agility, and power, animals certainly seem to be in constant motion. Often, to rest is to invite attack. Animals sense the world around them and react, ceaselessly pushing, striking, sparring. But what did it take to bring this fast-paced drama to life? Off the rocky coast of Rhode Island lies a watery world that may hold the answer. Costello is on the trail of an ancient mystery. If we could travel back hundreds of millions of years, he believes we would find the pioneers that introduced movement and behavior to the animal kingdom. But he doesn't need a time machine. In these cold, murky waters, Costello thinks he can find a creature very similar to those ancient trailblazers. In fact, his quarry is easily found, and just as easily overlooked.
Although movement and behavior is quite complex in the animal kingdom, we really can see the roots of movement in a very simple or primitive group.
This flower-like creature is an anemone, one of an ancient group of animals called Cnidarians. How could such simple creatures have given rise to life's diverse ballet? At first glance, some Cnidarians don't even look like animals.
Cnidarians with their tentacles spread out, growing on the bottom, really don't look very different frequently from the algae that surround them. So, in fact, the early scientists classified them as plants.
These organisms perplexed scientists for centuries. Early naturalists wondered, were they plants, animals, or something in between? The scientist to solve the mystery was a keen observer of the natural world, a Swiss naturalist named Abraham Trombley. Trombley lived in Holland during the 18th century. Working as a tutor, he introduced his students to the subtle wonders of nature. While investigating life in a pond, he stumbled on a tiny green plant-like organism. At first, Trombley thought they were mere tufts of grass. Then, to his astonishment, he observed something completely unexpected. He observed them moving.
The first movement that I noticed was in their arms, which bent and twisted slowly in all directions. Thinking that they were plants, I could scarcely imagine that this movement was their own.
After weeks of painstaking observation, Trombley began to suspect that these were not plants after all, but animals. It was an audacious hypothesis in its day, but testing it was easy. Trombley offered his subjects food and noted their voracious attacks.
I saw them digest animals as long and even longer than themselves. Thus, I had hardly any further reason to doubt that they were carnivorous animals.
Trombley's discovery that cnidarians were active, predatory animals was a revelation for 18th century science. In the centuries that followed, it would lead to even more profound conclusions about animal life. Today, Costello believes that the appearance of early cnidarians was the pivotal event that triggered a revolution.
They're certainly a critical group to study. In fact, they are quite important if you want to understand motion and behavior.
Hundreds of millions of years ago, before animals swam the ocean's waters or scurried along the seafloor, only one group of animals existed. They were sponges. Unable to actively move on their own, they lacked all but the most rudimentary senses. Sponges filtered tiny food particles from the water by pumping the ocean through their bodies. They were simple, little more than a loose collection of cells. Then creatures far more complex sprang into being and changed the world forever. These were the first cnidarians. They may not look like pioneers, but cnidarians marked a turning point for animal behavior. These creatures were the first to wield sensitive tentacles that could actually reach out and perceive the world. More than 500 million years ago, Cnidarians invented other features we take for granted today. Here was an animal with a mouth. And connected to that mouth, a stomach to digest food. It was a brilliant innovation that would spread throughout the animal kingdom. But Cnidarians brought even greater inventions. These deceptively simple creatures invented movement. The very first animal movements may have looked much like these subtle stirrings. Past the frilly tentacles of this Cnidarian, inside its throat, thousands of tiny hairs pull water into its body. Seen in time-lapse, the animal seems to sprout and grow as water fills its body to create a liquid skeleton. It can now stand erect, poised for action. With two sets of muscles, Cnidarians can bend in any direction. To control their muscles, they rely on another Cnidarian invention, special cells called nerves. Through a set of these nerves, electrical impulses trigger one set of muscles to contract, pushing the animal higher. By contracting the other set of muscles, the animal can flex itself into the perfect pose for snagging food. It looks so simple, but all creatures that crawl, soar, or swim today rely on muscle and nerve, their ancient inheritance from Cnidarians. Appearances can be deceiving. Creatures that look slow and simple actually started the nimble dance of life.
Cnidarians made that huge jump. That jump to nerve and muscle tissue that made possible all kinds of motions. It's incredibly simple, but very effective system. That's a beautiful system.
The California coast is home to some of the most spectacular Cnidarians on Earth, attracting scientists the world over. For biologist Ian Long, this rocky shoreline is a paradise. By studying sea anemones, Long can imagine what the first animal behaviors may have actually looked like.
For me, the really fascinating questions in biology are all about origins. Where have we come from? What sort of things started off the evolution of behavior? And you've got to go back to a group like the Cnidarians in order to study this question. Probably the most important thing that movement has provided the anemone is its ability to capture food.
Cnidarians were the first active predators on the planet. Like its ancestors, this anemone may seem docile, but it has tricks for snaring fast-moving flesh. The goby is a swift swimmer, with eyes and senses attuned to any sign of danger and a brain able to process complex signals. It seems better equipped for survival. The anemone, however, has developed weapons of its own. Lining its tentacles are millions of special capsules called nematocysts. Inside the capsules lie thread-like projectiles loaded with deadly poisons. When unleashed, these weapons fire with the acceleration of a rifle bullet. They pierce their target and pump it full of paralyzing toxins. The tentacles must be touched before the weapons can discharge. And for that, the prey must come to the anemone. Its plant-like appearance perfectly conceals its very deadly intent. In silent ambush, the anemone awaits its prey. For the goby, one unguarded moment could be fatal. Dragging the fish into its mouth, the anemone devours it with tools invented by its ancient ancestors. The goby will be slowly digested alive. For more than 500 million years, cnidarians have been honing and adapting their nematocysts. And they've developed a stunning array of weapons. Some are even laced with toxins that can be fatal to humans. But these barbed projectiles are used for more than capturing food. They are also weapons deployed against their own kind. Cnidarians like these may have been among the first animals to wage savage battles for turf. These anemones appear to be peacefully coexisting in a tide pool. On the surface, all seems serene. But trouble is brewing. A struggle over a patch of rock. Splaying their tentacles, the animals detect each other. Now, there's no turning back. Each animal prepares for battle, inflating a series of sacs, special tools for combat. Inside each sack are hundreds of thousands of weapons. It is a veritable silo of warheads loaded with toxins. But in order to deploy its weapons, each combatant must reach out and strike its enemy. And the fight begins. In slow motion, they deliver their devastating blows. Anemone battles can last for hours, even days. The fighting is brutal and can even lead to death. With each strike, thousands of poisonous weapons are unleashed, penetrating flesh, pumping soft bodies full of toxins. As the arsenal is used up, the weapon sacks are left empty and tattered. Triumphant, one anemone spreads its tentacles as though flaunting its victory. the vanquished retreats within itself and will eventually move away. Animals have waged battles for dominance over hundreds of millions of years. Frenzied brawls for territory, deadly battles for the right to mate. These behaviors may have started with unassuming creatures. While Cnidarians may have sown the seeds of warfare and strife, they also pioneered a more harmonious way of life: cooperation. These tiny coral polyps are also Cnidarians, and like their cousins, they are predators, dining on plankton. But these polyps forsake individual combat. Instead, they are joined together in vast colonies. Instead of warring, they build. Working together, they create one of the greatest wonders of the natural world, a spectacle of colors and formations like no other: coral reefs. Off the northeast coast of Australia, the Great Barrier Reef stretches for more than 1,000 miles, an unrivaled treasure, teeming with the bounty of life, all of it dependent on the labor of tiny Cnidarians. The reef is a marvel of Cnidarian cooperation and productivity. Through the millennia, this magical structure, the work of coral polyps, has become so vast that it is visible from outer space. To create such a magnificent structure, corals ceaselessly grow and expand. Each species of coral synchronizes its spawning. It is one of nature's most prolific spectacles, and it happens on the same few nights each year. No one fully understands what signals the millions of coral polyps to spew their eggs and sperm into the currents in a single swirling display. By working together on an epic scale, these Cnidarians have found a way to guarantee their own rebirth. Cnidarians capture prey, wage battle, and build great structures. And they do it all with only basic nerves and muscles. How they accomplish so much has long intrigued biologist Ian Long.
The reason that anemones hold a fascination for me is that they have this seemingly very simply organized body plan and very simply organized nervous system, and yet capable of fairly complex behavior patterns. I was curious to see how they managed to do this.
Long decided to focus his research on the silent language of the Cnidarian's nervous system. For his subject, he picked one of the more unusual of all anemones, a solitary Cnidarian called Stomphia. Anchored to a rock on the ocean floor, it looks vulnerable. But looks can be deceiving. Stomphia would seem to make an easy meal for any determined predator. Today, it's being stalked by a stealthy foe, the sea star Dermasterius. Sampling the water with its sensory tentacles, the sea star inches toward its prey. With legions of tube feet used in capturing and grasping its victims, it is a well-armed hunter. Stomphia remains unaware of the approaching danger. But when Dermasterius comes close enough to touch it, Stomphia springs into action. In a stunning defensive maneuver, Stomphia frees itself from the rock and swims away. This is one of just a few anemones that can actually swim.
I was fascinated to see how Stomphia was capable of actually producing this very complex behavior pattern when, after all, it has a very simple nervous system. I wanted to find out how it used that nervous system to produce such a complex behavior pattern.
In the laboratory, Lon attaches electrodes to Stomphia to measure the frequency of its nerve impulses. First, he lightly strokes Stomphia with a paintbrush, and the animal closes. Stomphia's reaction to the paintbrush registers on the computer screen as pulses. Next, Lon offers Stomphia food. As expected, its nerves fire, and the animal proceeds to eat. Finally, Lon uses a sea star to trigger Stomphia's escape response. All it takes is a single touch. As nerve cells fire, a rapid series of pulses appears on the screen. Stomphia makes its escape.
Now let's just see how Stomphia is able to perform this amazing swimming behavior. Look, up the top here, we've got the feeding response, and on the bottom is the swimming response. And I can see from the shape of the pulses here that these responses are using exactly the same nervous system for both behaviors. The difference is that the swimming response has essentially just upped the tempo so that we're getting a lot more pulses being fired in a much shorter interval. By upping the tempo, Stomphia has actually been able to use the same system to produce a completely new behavior.
Lon discovered that behavior is determined by both the frequency and the number of times the nerves fire. This exquisite system, first perfected by Cnidarians, would be passed on throughout the animal kingdom.
The Cnidarians were really the first group to have perfected this. They invented wiring, they invented cabling. That's what nerves are. Nerves are cables that pass electricity through them. This was an amazing leap for the animal world.
Animals have evolved an astounding array of ways to move, to act and react, and it all began with Cnidarians.
So we have a great debt owing to this humble and primitive group.
Despite their revolutionary accomplishments, most ancient Cnidarians were bound to the sea floor. But theirs was a body plan that could not be held down for long. Exactly when or how it happened remains a mystery. But over millions of years, some Cnidarians evolved in a dramatically new direction. The edges of their mouth extended, and they developed arm-like feeding structures. Their tentacles became thin strands. Their cylindrical stalk transformed to a gelatinous bell, and a familiar, ghost-like animal took shape. With the evolution of jellyfish, Cnidarians may well have been the first animals to swim the world's oceans. With a body plan that would endure the ages, they entered watery realms across the planet. Today, these ocean drifters are prolific, and they come in a stunning variety of shapes and sizes. Many jellyfish are food for other organisms, like this young sea turtle. But jellyfish are hardly passive victims. In fact, they are dominant predators in many of the world's oceans. Trailing their deadly tentacles, jellyfish slowly trawl for prey. How could such wispy creatures, seemingly unable to get out of their own way, be such rapacious predators? Could their hypnotic pulsing movements carry a deadly secret? In 1990, Jack Costello began to investigate the mystery of how jellyfish move and feed. What he discovered would change the way we view these diaphanous killers. At Greenwich Cove in Rhode Island, Costello leads a group of students back to where he conducted his breakthrough research. In search of new insights, Costello used an underwater video camera. By capturing hour upon hour of jellyfish movement on videotape, he could meticulously examine how and why they swim the way they do.
You find her and shoot.
One focus of his research was a group called moon jellies. Moon jellies begin their lives as tiny polyps anchored to the seafloor. They are ghostly forms of life, no larger than the tip of a pencil. Like so many Cnidarians, they seem perfectly ordinary and perhaps unexciting until you look closely at their hidden lives. In fact, just a few times each year, moon jellies undergo one of the most fantastic transformations in the animal kingdom.
At some point, those polyps, they'll begin to divide. And it's almost like they form little plates, one on top of each other.
Each polyp forms dozens of orange plates. Each plate in turn becomes a single animal called an ephyra.
The ephyra can be considered the juvenile jellyfish stage. each of which breaks off from the pulp stem and swims away.
Millions of years ago, ancient Cnidarians may have freed themselves from the sea floor in just such a way. Over the course of a month, the juvenile jellyfish feed on plankton as they develop into adults. Fully grown, they can reach nearly 2 feet in width. When they spawn, these jellyfish gather in massive swarms near the coast. Males cast threads of sperm into the water. Collecting the threads with their frilly arms, females capture and ingest the sperm, which then fertilize their eggs. Accustomed to open seas, their delicate bodies can be battered in these swarms. As they join together, many will succumb and die. Within days, their flimsy bodies break down and disappear, but their offspring will take root as tiny polyps and start the cycle anew. Moon jellies have a remarkable life cycle. But Costello was more intrigued by something they do every day. He is fascinated by the way they move. His hours of videotape reveal that jellyfish swim constantly. But for all their movement, they don't seem to be getting anywhere.
They do spend all their time swimming, and they really don't make much forward progress. So really that leaves us asking, why would they spend their time swimming?
What equally confounded Costello was that jellyfish are not designed for easy movement through the water. In fact, their body plan seemed shaped to slow them down.
That round disc-like shape is probably one of the least effective shapes for forward progress that we can imagine. Now there is ambient flow, so it is coming in the animals moving with the current. But a flattened shape moving through the water presents the most resistance in what we call drag of any form that you can imagine.
To get a clearer view of jellyfish in motion, Costello established a simple experiment. Was there some hidden purpose in the jellyfish design? Perched above the rugged Big Sur coastline in Northern California, a laboratory has been established to explore and document animal behavior.
Now, ideally, this needs to be locked off, doesn't it?
With a crew of filmmakers, Costello demonstrates his experiment. Their subject, a jellyfish the size of a water drop.
And we're not getting motion from the camera moving. What we wanted to do was look at the action of swimming and look at how it did interact with the fluid around it. Oh, excellent, excellent. Should I add particles? I guess I might as well.
Costello adds tiny particles to the tank, enabling him to see how the water flows around the jellyfish. Now, as the jellyfish swims, it creates a visible current. Suddenly, the animal's secret is revealed.
So, there we go.
Ah, perfect. You see where they flew in there?
Yeah.
What we found through looking at it is that this very high drag body form is very good at creating vortices and flow around the bell margin so that the flow goes right through those tentacles and enables the jellyfish to capture its prey. You see, it's swimming along here, and actually it's the swimming motion and the flow created by swimming that's bringing all the prey into the capture surfaces. So that really the body that we think of as bad or ineffective for forward motion is very effective for creating the flow which enables that animal to feed.
In later work, Costello revealed that each jellyfish shape creates its own distinct current, allowing it to capture different prey. But what may be most profound about Costello's discovery is that the first animal to launch itself from the sea floor and swim may have done so to ensnare its prey, not to give chase.
It's incredibly simple, but very effective system. Becomes a little more sinister when you realize that it's the mechanism for these animals to swim through the water and essentially kill all their prey.
Scientists know that jellyfish thrive in the upper ocean. But are they also abundant at great depths? This was a question that couldn't be answered until now. The research vessel Western Flyer is cruising the waters of Monterey, California. Her mission? To search the ocean depths for cnidarians. With a state-of-the-art remotely operated vehicle, or ROV, they will journey deep into the ocean, to a realm that humans rarely see.
Thrusters are clear.
Their trailblazing search for cnidarians will take them 8,000 feet below the surface.
Close. Want to open it up again? Yeah. Open. Okay, turn is 2.
At the helm of this expedition is biologist Bruce Robeson.
The cnidarians are so abundant and so important in the upper kilometer of the ocean that we anticipate that isn't going to change as we proceed to depths beyond 1,000 meters, but we certainly can't know for sure.
Okay, I'll go ahead and swing out the swing arms. Okay.
It's the largest living space on Earth.
From the control room of the Western Flyer, Robeson and his crew take the ROV on a checkout dive. They must succeed in relatively shallow water before they can send the equipment into the deep. All goes smoothly. Within the first 3,000 feet of water, they find familiar but spectacular sights. This astounding creature, known as Preya, is a combination of the two basic cnidarian shapes: the pulsing, bell-shaped medusa and the stalk-like polyp with trailing tentacles. Spanning up to 120 feet, Preya is the longest predator in the world, longer even than a blue whale. stinging tentacles sweep through the water like a massive fishing net. As with other cnidarians, its tentacles are lined with millions of nematocysts for capturing and killing prey. Deeper, the crew spots a colobonema, a jellyfish with a surprising defense. When startled, it detaches its tentacles, leaving them behind as decoys to distract would-be attackers. To some, these cnidarians appear fantastic, surprising, even otherworldly. But in this realm, they are the dominant animals. Still, being abundant doesn't mean jellyfish are easy to catch. Even with specially designed containers, it takes finesse.
And we're lining up, we're a little over the mark here. You want to line the shaft up with that white mark. He's in perfect shape. Oh, yes, 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 yes. All right, bingo.
The test run is complete. The crew retrieves the ROV.
All right, good one. Okay, give it to Jess, give it to Jess.
The cnidarians they've gathered are rushed into the lab for further study. The next dive is more than a checkout run, and more risky. This time the crew of Western Flyer is headed into the unknown depths, to 8,000 feet and beyond.
Now we're going to be able to extend into territory that we haven't explored before. Deep water, I'm convinced, is filled with surprises.
And before long, wondrous creatures begin to appear.
So it's a big one. Yeah, look, look, look. Those could be amphipods. Are they eggs?
The team is rewarded by a great diversity of cnidarians. Everywhere the cameras turn, another fantastic specimen emerges.
Right up the top, right side. See it?
Then, as the ROV reaches 8,000 feet, they make an amazing find.
What's that? Yeah, come up, please. Okay.
This was a brand new species, a brand new animal.
This jellyfish has never been seen before, never classified, never given a name. Its size, 3 feet in diameter, makes it larger than most other jellyfish in the world. Unlike other cnidarians, this animal does not have tentacles, only massive fleshy arms. Almost nothing else is known about its body or its life. How does it capture prey? What does it eat? What is its life cycle? Could it grow even larger?
finding new life forms is exciting. It's fun. It's part of the payoff of doing this kind of research.
By the end of their mission, Robeson and his team have uncovered a myriad of cnidarians living below 3,000 feet. Apparently, the remarkable creatures that dominate the upper waters are also abundant in the deeper reaches. Millions of years ago, unlikely pioneers sparked a revolution. Cnidarians set animal life in motion, ushering behavior onto life's stage. Locked in a glorious and often savage ballet, animals have followed in the cnidarians' wake.
Animal motion is extremely complex. It's really one of the characteristics that we usually attribute to animals. The ability to move.
We use nerves, we use muscles, we use sensory cells, all things which the cnidarians invented in the course of their evolution.
So much of what we take for granted today began with cnidarians. They are the unsung heroes of the animal kingdom, simple creatures that forever set into motion the magnificent shape of life.